So much of Washington, D.C. is built out. We're an ultra-urban environment, and so 43% of Washington, D.C. is covered with rooftops, parking lots.
We viewed streams and rivers as drainage ditches, and you wanted water to get out as fast as possible. So you brick them in, you put in concrete, and then we found out that doesn't work right for everything.
From building, all this water, all these concrete surfaces are now destroying the habitat.
Essentially, it's concrete, your hardscape, which used to be natural areas like trees, vegetation.
When the rain falls on them, instead of soaking into the ground or hitting the leaves and being soaked into the plants and the vegetation, that water just races off of that impervious surface.
Onto sidewalks, into gutters, and into streets. And it takes everything with it, whether it be cigarette butts or contaminants.
Thousands of cubic gallons per second flooding through a little creek that might be a couple of inches high in a regular day, and then you'll see it'll rise about 4 or 6 feet.
A stormwater pipe is like a big fire hose, taking all the water from the street and homes and directing it into one central point in a stream valley.
It erodes the stream channels, it gouges them out, trees topple over the stream banks, and the sediment goes into the stream and degrades aquatic habitat, plus it goes downstream to our rivers.
And it's the largest growing challenge in the Chesapeake Bay watershed and the fastest growing challenge globally.
The inner third of the city is part of what's called the combined sewer system. There's a lot of really exciting work that's underway now to manage the overflows from that system.
In a big rain event, that instead of overwhelming the sewage treatment plants, it would just divert to the rivers. District government and DC Water were tasked with coming up with a long-term control plan, and the result of that is the Clean Rivers Project. So during a storm event where we would naturally have an overflow into the river, this will actually be then contained, and then once the storm passes, it can be pumped down to Blue Plains.
Department of Energy and Environment has done numerous stream restorations in the city.
What the challenge is to come up with ways to go back to the natural filtration. This technology that's been here since the beginning of the earth.
This park was contributing over 100 tons of sediment to the Anacostia River.
I discovered the stream rather early, and the way I discovered it was after a heavy rain, water would rush down. It was actually quite capped. And about 10 years ago, I had some renovation work done on my house, and there were foundation cracks. And engineers from the Department of the Environment came out, and they said, "It's the stream." And I said, "My stream is causing this to my house?" The city had constructed several outpours. That is where all of the rainwater from all of the homes around Alger Park drained into.
The stream valley was never meant to have so much stormwater directed into it at once.
Had these huge 20-foot erosion canyons.
So we needed to do a stream restoration project to stabilize the stream and restore the stream to exist in the conditions that we now live in.
I was extremely happy when I saw trucks and cranes and the heavy equipment roll up and go down into the park. So I think they're very happy and very pleased that we have this treasure in our community.
We want to fix this sediment problem. We want to cut that off so there's no more sediment washing down to the Anacostia River. And then we can go up and fix the stormwater problem, which also will give us other nutrient load reductions as well.
Springhouse Run here, it runs into the Arboretum, and just behind me it joins another stream called Hickey Run, which is a larger stream that then goes into the Anacostia River.
And that had really been just turned into a drainage ditch. And it goes shooting through there.
To enough that the stream bank started to insize and erode down. That sediment, the only place for it to go is downstream and eventually to the Anacostia River, where that sediment builds up, makes the river shallower, the temperature warmer.
Washington, D.C., an ultra-urban city that's been around for 400 years, is actually on the leading edge of stream restoration. They're employing these mechanisms of pushing water through the landscape to restore groundwater seepage flows.
Already fish start coming back up, water shore birds start coming back in, and you get this real sense that you're recreating a natural habitat in an urban area.
The paradigms about rivers in urban areas has shifted from where it was decades ago, where a river was a place to dump waste and merely a mode of transportation to now it is where people live, it is where people go for recreation, it is where people fish for sustenance.
We're talking about the Anacostia River, the Potomac River, Rock Creek, Watts Branch, Hickey Run, Pope Branch, all the little streams and creeks that flow through all the neighborhoods in the city. We're trying to restore health to all of them.
And that's how you manage and maintain stormwater, so it's not always a zero-sum game. It doesn't just all go into the river. It goes into a natural process that really is healthy and clean.
Cost of installing enough green infrastructure in Washington, D.C. to turn back the clock on the city and make it behave more naturally from a hydrological perspective is upwards of $7 billion.
Is that if we can slow that water down, if we can infiltrate it in the ground in place or capture it in a cistern or a rain garden and hold it in place, but we can use that captured rainwater in a better way.
Having green infrastructure, having trees and bushes and just greenery around you helps people feel better. It actually has lower incidences of crime, and it also creates greater value to the property that you have.
Bioretention, like you see here, green roofs, permeable pavement, cistern systems.
You can also have a reduction of localized flooding.
We really need to know as an agency, as a city, of how far do we need to go to restore our waterways? Where are the investments being made and how much progress are we making with those investments? And all of that really needs to be data driven.
Where we really need to be focusing our investment is in the municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4. That's that outer 2/3 of the city that drain with little or no treatment to our water bodies.
All large jurisdictions are required to have an MS4 permit. It allows you to continue to discharge. We know there's pollution in there, but it requires you to implement controls to try to reduce that pollution to the maximum extent practicable.
One of the unique things about the District of Columbia's stormwater management regulations is this credit trading market.
A property generates stormwater retention credits by voluntarily installing a green infrastructure practice.
We have $7 billion of work to do. We have about $10 million a year to do that work. So we need to shift as much of that investment to the MS4 as we can, and credit trading makes that possible.
It's an elegant plan, and it works in particularly well for a city that's already built out but now needs to absorb its stormwater.
And this allows people that have that regulated obligation of managing stormwater to meet half of that obligation by purchasing credits from someone else that's voluntarily installed stormwater management practices.
And by doing that, we shift that private investment and we shift that green infrastructure to where it's needed the most.
You're democratizing stormwater retention across the city.
A stormwater retention credit is 1 gallon of stormwater retained in green infrastructure like this one for a year. We needed to find a way to provide flexibility, and stormwater retention credit trading is a way to provide that flexibility that made it possible for us to put in place some of the most protective regulations of any city in the country.
There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 million square feet of regulated development that happens every year in the district.
So the private developers are reconditioning the land in a built-out city with us,
while also doing it in a way that provides flexibility to the regulated development projects that are the ones who really pay for and install a lot of the green infrastructure in the city.
This is an innovative project that uses models that people are starting to think more and more about. How do you have a public-private partnership? How can a public entity make money off these stormwater credits that they sell to someone else?
Investors are interested in environmental programs for a couple of reasons. The first is a great risk-adjusted return. The second is not being correlated with the rest of the financial markets. And the third would be that it's doing something socially good.
It's a different way to engage the markets and capitalism into a government public purpose.
And the way they get a financial return is they can sell the value of the stormwater management they get out of that to someone that has a regulated obligation. And the data is starting to show that where people are going to make that voluntary investment is where we want it to be made, in the MS4 areas.
And so not only is it a new funding source, it's an ability to do projects to scale and to do bigger projects and more projects, and to really be able to turn the dial on the impact that we're trying to have on the Chesapeake Bay and the Stormwater Challenge.
The primary thing that DOE is doing right now to help encourage SRC project is to put money into the SRC Price Lock Program. We're creating demand for $11.5 million worth of stormwater retention credits in the areas where green infrastructure is most in need.
Essentially, we're providing a price floor in that marketplace that allows investors, that allows credit aggregators, that allows property owners to decide if it's worth making an investment in green infrastructure on their property.
If we want to be participants in the market, where we make those purchases, to put our finger on the scale, to really help drive where that voluntary retrofits happen.
It provides some confidence for investors that credits can be sold, and so that helps to get more investment interest in doing more of these type of projects across the city.
An SRC Aggregating Business is an organization that helps property owners to install green infrastructure on their site.
We reach out to a church or a nonprofit or perhaps a small business and propose to lease a small portion of their land to build a rain garden at our expense. We put the money up front, we take all the risk. Basically, all we do is ask for a lease. Our business model then provides a lease payment to the institution, to the church or to the nonprofit, that helps them to support their social programs. So everybody wins. We win, the environment wins, and the church wins.
PNBC wanted to participate in this rain pay program because it really advances our mission. We're right adjacent to the Anacostia River, and over time, we trust that it will do its small part.
We're launching an SRC Aggregator Startup Grant Program, which hopes to fund the preliminary technical work and outreach to site owners to come up with designs for green infrastructure projects.
Mount Olivet Cemetery. We are finding sites like this where we are building stormwater retention.
Really massive network of bioretentions that are being installed throughout the cemetery
to generate credits that we can sell on the market. And we're doing this as part of a larger strategy across the country to show that you can have conservation benefits while using private equity.
It's beautifying the city because I come from a community where drugs, poverty, but I watch it as I keep planting and planting plants. That same negative group of people are moving away because they respect the beautification.
When we talk about stormwater retention, your mind immediately goes to environmental benefits, conservation benefits. There's a lot of social benefits as well.
Unfortunately, the east of the river has become known as the neglected part of Washington, D.C.
Environmental justice, I think, in this day and age, could be defined differently by different communities. Kind of the historical or disproportionate effect that it has on mainly minority communities, the impact in their neighborhoods where their circumstances just not wanted or warranted.
The health of the river really is so important to our communities because we're connected to the river.
District of Columbia has made doing good for society also doing good for your bank account.
Hearing lots of cities saying, hey, we want to do what DC's doing, we want to learn from it.
So I'm really trying to show other cities what DC are doing. We took a chance and we decided we're going to do it, we're going to go with it. And I can tell any other city, the residents are loving it.
That's what this is all about at the end of the day, is restoring health to our water bodies, making them a resource for the community, for our residents, for visitors to the city, for all the businesses whose business can thrive better when we have a clean, healthy city, a sustainable, resilient city.
And we have the opportunity to demonstrate something that we can replicate all across the country.
I never have to apologize for the work that I do when I go home at night. There's few things that are more grand than restoring God's creation.